Welcome to another episode of the Drachmas and Denarii podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sam.
I'm Adrian. What's up?
Nothing much, and yeah, we're here today to share some of our top coins of 2022. In the spirit of the American holiday of Thanksgiving, we're going to look back on our year and see what kind of cool coins we bought, discuss the history and the rarity behind our coolest acquisitions. And I think we've both narrowed our lists down to 8 coins each, so we're going to have a good variety of Roman or Imperator imperial coins. We're going to have Greek coins, and we're going to have some Byzantine coins.
Yeah. So, how's your year been, Sam?
Yeah, pretty good. I think I've had a exciting year collecting wise. I've got a lot of interesting types I picked up, some unique types, unpublished types, so a pretty good variety. All late Byzantine for me.
Yeah. No, I've had a pretty good year when it comes to coins too. I've gone through cycles of narrowing down and then expanding my focus, and I think I'll be able to provide a pretty good list of silver coins from the late Republic here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I said we go ahead and get into it and check out some of these coins. I believe you are first up.
Yeah. No. I talked a bit about this coin in the previous episode, so I won't go into detail here. But this is just too big of a milestone for me personally not to include in the list. So this is a portrait denarius of Lepidus, the triumvir. It was struck in 43 BC to commemorate the foundation of the second triumvirate. This is also a military mint coin, which means that it wasn't struck by in the normal mint in Rome, but was struck with Lepidus's moving column whilst he was moving in Italy in 43 BC.
Yeah, it's a great type.
My second coin is a bit different. Those who know me will probably know that I collect Sistophori in general. This is a coin with both connotations to the old Greek world and connotations to the new Roman world. So this coin was struck by Quintus Caecilius Metellus Pius Scipio, a very famous and a person that I think most of our audience will already know. He was an opponent of Caesar and a very close ally of Cato. And during the civil war that Caesar started in 49, he was one of the leaders of the Pompeian faction, meaning that he was allied with the Optimates or the conservatives in the Senate. It was minted during the proconsulship that Scipio got in Syria, and it was minted at the mint in Pergamon. That's probably a bit confusing for those who don't know the history of the coin. During the tumultuous year of 49 and 48, the Roman East was in a bit of a disarray. The normal governors and magistrates that had received their commands from the Senate were ousted. In their place were Pompeian bureaucrats, leaders, and Scipio among them. He took command of a region encompassing both Syria and Asia. And obviously Pergamon, the mint, was located in Asia. This coin was struck before the Battle of Pharsalus, where Scipio commanded the Pompeian center. Obviously, the battle didn't go his way, but I think not really his fault that he lost, provided that the Pompeian center line performed quite well compared to the wings.
So here on the
Yeah,
reverse, am I seeing a military standard? I noticed a staff with the eagle on top, and that's not a normal part of the design.
you're absolutely correct. It's a Legionary Aquila. It's a staff with a golden eagle upon it. So these standards were carried by each legion, and they were glorified, and they were served as quasi-religious symbols, and they were very important for the culture and morale of the army. So here, Scipio is quite obviously trying to provide the image of a general, of a person with command and loyalty from the army, as he was trying to raise funds in Asia.
Yeah, it's a very cool type. Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, it was actually bought on the 26th of February this year. So for those following world events, just 2 days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. A very tumultuous time for for me personally. I remember running around, watching news articles, trying to keep up with current events. Very, very scary stuff. Europe being at
Definitely.
war, but
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a lot more worrying too, being on the continent compared to me in the States. I mean, not that it wasn't a big deal, but a little bit less pressing because it was sort of distant.
yeah, sure, sure. But in the midst of all that, we got to keep up with the coins, and I was
Exactly.
able
Collecting
to.
comes first.
Yes, exactly. But I was able to pick this up, and I'm extremely grateful for having done so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats. Yeah, so here's probably my coolest win of the year, and of course, as I'm going, the dog's barking. But this is a silver trachea of Michael VIII Paleologos with his son Andronicus II. I don't know, can you zoom in there a little bit? It's a little small on my screen. I'm not
Yep.
sure if you can. Yeah, that would be appreciated. Awesome. Yeah, so this coin was minted ostensibly to celebrate the coronation of Andronicus II as co-emperor. I don't know if I buy that attribution, but I'm writing an article currently that'll debunk that. But as of right now, the official theory is it was a coronation issue. But it's a very rare trachea. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 in the sale archives. So they're pretty hard to find, and I was very excited to win this. I got it at Roma Numismatics. I think it was by far the most expensive coin that I bought this year, but I got it at a great deal. I think an absurdly cheap price that I couldn't believe I'd won it that low. And interestingly, just to note, it is a die match with pretty much every other coin out there. It seems to be a small mintage. Stax had a sale, Stax Bowers, in January 2009. Same reverse die there, C&G 112, same dies, and then Roma eSale 85. That specimen's also got the same dies. So just interesting to note that it's a small mintage ostensibly, not many dies, but it's a great type. You can see it's a little damaged. But even then, I think that might have scared some bidders away. But if you go on AC Search, there's a much worse example that's washed out, cracked about 85% through, that sold for 3 times what this coin did. So I'm super happy with the price I paid to get this type. It's one of those sort of white whale coins that I thought I would never own. So I was just very excited to get that super cheaply. And the stars aligned to make sure I could have that. And then I don't know if I mentioned on the obverse, we've got, I believe it's St. George standing there. You can see he's holding a shield and a spear. So yeah, overall, just a very cool issue.
Fantastic strike on this one. Could you elaborate a little bit more about what are these symbols that we're seeing on the obverse and the reverse?
Yeah, so
what are those legends? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just part of the legends. So you can see, you can make out like the symbols on the obverse pretty much translate to like, "Oh, Holy St. George." And then on the reverse, it would be something along the lines of Michael and Andronicus, emperors, and then you can kind of see the ICXC for Christ above. Or, sorry, that's St. Michael, my bad. For St. Michael above. But you can see then like the legend there, that would make more sense. With the X on top for Michael, that would be for St. Michael, then sort of below him, they'd have the legends for Michael and Andronicus. And then interestingly, the reason they chose St. Michael is because the main emperor, Michael VIII, sort of his namesake saint, so that's why he was pretty prominent during this time. But yeah, overall, a very... Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, having a very limited experience with Byzantine coins in general, this to me looks like an exceptionally well preserved silver issue. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's very nice for the issue, and of course,
Yeah.
being silver, they're pretty hard to come by in the first place. But yeah, just super excited to get this piece. I think it's going to be probably the centerpiece of my collection. Just a super rare, nice issue of some prominent emperors.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. We can go ahead and move on to my next coin. And that one is, I got this actually out of a group lot. It is a silver trachea of the Emperor John III Vatatzes. You can see here on the, what's really the reverse, but the first side shown, it's the Emperor standing up, the full-length figure. He's holding a labarum in his left hand and the akakia in his right hand. And the akakia is known, it's a pretty well-known symbol. It is a scroll wrapped up with dust inside, and as dust falls out, it's supposed to remind the Emperor that he is only mortal and that he too will die. And that actually harkens back to the Roman Republic, where the consuls would hold. I think it goes back also to a lot of the emperors who would hold consulships during the 1st and 2nd century AD. They would wave a certain scroll to start games pretty much at the Colosseum. So this is sort of a tradition that evolved from that through time and became a staple of the Byzantine emperor in their dress. You can see there's also a star below the emperor, below his hand here. And above, you can't really make it out unless you're familiar with Byzantine coins, but above the akakia, his right hand, you can see there's the manus Dei, the hand of God that's blessing the emperor, just to show that the emperor is ordained by the heavens. And then on the obverse, on the right side here, you can see we've got a bust of Christ Emmanuel. And even though this coin is so ragged, so damaged, I think the artistry really comes through, and you can tell it's a very nice bust, exquisitely engraved, and it's got nice toning too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So the obverse is on the right here. That's the bust of Christ.
Yeah, I just messed up the orientation.
Oh, I got.
Yeah, that's the obverse, and the emperor is really the reverse. But yeah, I just think it's a very nice coin. You can see the obverse here with Christ is double struck, so you can actually see if you tilt your head about, I'd say 15 to 20 degrees, you can see the second Christ Emmanuel head and a different ear as well.
Yeah, sure, definitely. It's a very very busy composition, both on the obverse and the reverse, but especially the reverse with the star. You have a few symbols there to the left of the emperor.
Yeah, that would just be the legend stating like John, Emperor of the Romans, or really despot, but it translates to the same thing.
Gotcha. Is there any reason for the ragged edges seen on these?
Honestly,
Or?
I've got no idea. I picked it up at a group lot. I also got a bunch of different silver Byzantine coins, and it was a nice find. But I just think that it was kind of damaged for whatever reason, so it just got thrown in here unidentified, and so I was able to pick that up cheaply. And it's a pretty rare type. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 in AC search as well. It's not as desirable as the one I just showed, but I think it's still a very nice issue, and the artistry really caught my attention, that bust of Christ. Just think it's beautiful. A great depiction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these coins, these group log finds that you're able to make are really intriguing to read and learn about. Having being able to collect something that you can find really rare and desirable types via group lots has to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I wonder too, I wonder if I dug on this coin I couldn't find some provenance. If you look, it's got some nice blue toning, so I would be curious if there's any ownership history out there.
Oh, yeah,
But
sure.
yeah, overall a very nice piece.
Definitely.
Well, we can go ahead and move on.
All right, yes. So my next coin is a Sistophore again. This time of the consul Publius Cornelius Lentulus Spinter. He was consul in 57, and I think, especially when you're dealing with late Republican coins, it's always very nice to have coins issued by consuls who served before the Civil War and before the ascendance of Caesar, when the consulship obviously degraded into more of a symbolic position, ceremonial position. Lentulus served as consul in 57, as I said, and during his term, he was actually the one to recall Cicero from exile. So if anyone in the audience recalls, Cicero was actually exiled from the city of Rome after his term as consul due to a fervor of reformers and populism turned the populace against Cicero, basically. But during Lentulus' tenure, Cicero was recalled, and it was thanks to Lentulus and many other many Pompeians really working for Cicero in the Senate, that he was able to return to the city and continue his political career, which obviously changed history immensely.
And I believe that one's got the rare prophecy side legend, right? If you look in the reverse, it looks like a legate letter, M, A, and O, predicting the rise of Mao, Chairman Mao in communist China. So it's a pretty well known issue for that.
I'm sorry, what?
The MAO.
Oh, you mean the mint mark? Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
No, I'm just
It's
just messing
actually
around.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was very, very confused there for a second, but I see what you mean now. It's actually not a communist issue by Mao, but actually it's a mint mark for the mint at Laodicea. There's a lambda there and an alpha and an omega, and then yeah. So it says Laodicea.
Yeah, it's a very nice issue preservation wise. I think, especially with the obverse here, a lot of times that die state is, I would just say, not up to par. They get worn out pretty quickly. But you can see here, you've got pretty much all the detail you would ever want, and the binding of the lid there, and the layers, and I'm assuming it's a reed basket.
Yeah, it's a System Mystica. So uh, it confers to the legend of Hercules and of those prominent faiths in the region. But yeah, it's also a unpublished issue. So this coin isn't published anywhere, which makes it obviously desirable for anyone who collects in this area. It's also a overstruck coin, which is pretty rare when it comes to these issues specifically. It was overstruck on a previously issued coin from the same mint. I'm currently doing a little write-up on this coin specifically. I'll be posting that on a few forums. Who knows? It might turn into a video later on.
Yeah, that'll be. I'm looking forward to it. That'll be nice.
Yeah. Moving on. Lentulus served as proconsul in the province of Cilicia from 56 to 53. Obviously, this coin was issued during that governorship that he served. He was hailed as imperator by his troops, and then later actually served a triumph in Rome. And this is actually a rare case of an official that we know the complete journey through the cursus honorum of. So for this guy, for Lentulus, we actually know the years that he served in each of the offices required under the cursus honorum. So for example, he served as quaestor or urban quaestor in 74. He served as aedile in 63, praetor in 60, and then finally consul in 57. So for me, it's a very cool coin. It's a very cool individual. And I'm extremely happy, obviously, with having acquired this coin.
Yeah, definitely.
So we can move on. Yeah, so my next coin is a denarius of Quintus Caecilius Metellus Pius Scipio, a long name. This is actually the same individual that we spoke of briefly before, having struck that Sistophore. This coin was minted after the Pompeian flight from Greece after the Battle of Pharsalus. During this time, the Pompeian faction led by Cato was desperately trying to raise money in Africa for new troops, new levies to continue the fight against Caesar. This coin was issued in 47, just a year before the final climactic battle at Thapsus that the Pompeians lost. Scipio would lead this battle quite incompetently, and having lost it, he was obviously condemned to die from there on. Ronald Syme, one of the great scholars of the Roman Republic, he called him the last Scipio of any consequence, and I think that's correct. This is the last Scipio that served a prominent function in Roman society, and one whose story is, I think, very important to the late Republic.
So question here with the legends, they're not circular, but they're in almost like a column form, or just along a straight line. Is that intentional? It seems a bit odd. Aren't most Republican denarii having a circular legend compared to a straight
Yeah,
line? Is there any significance behind that, or is it just the choice of the die engraver?
I'm not certain there's any significance for it. I think it's just a stylistic and design choice made by either the engraver or the person in charge of the mint. Um, Obviously, this coin's design is a bit divergent from other contemporary Republican issues.
Definitely.
It shows the personification of Africa on the obverse, wearing an elephant headdress, and on the reverse, Hercules with his club, posing in a very artistic manner. But yeah,
Yeah, contrapasso.
sorry.
The pose, contrapasso, the Renaissance pose they would go for with the
Oh yeah, sure.
slight lean.
Yeah. So the connotations here are basically that Africa is very strong, and that in turn the Pompeians are very strong. So that's really the message that's being conveyed here. I thought I'd briefly just go over the legends, especially since you asked, Sam.
Yeah.
On the obverse, it says Quintus Metellus Scipio Imperator. That's the legends here on the obverse. They're a little off-plan on my example, and due to the legends being arranged this way, it's kind of hard finding an example that's completely on-flan for this issue, actually. So one where everything is legible, those go for pretty high premiums. On the reverse, we see the name of an official who was in charge of the production of these coins. His name is Marcus Appius, Marcus Filius, so the son of Marcus Appius, son of Marcus. He held the position of Legatus Fisci Castrensis, which is basically the camp economy official. So he would be in charge of the military mint that the Pompeian camp was administering. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nice issue. Sweet. Well, this is one of my wins, if you couldn't tell. It is a Basilicon of Andronicus III, and if you don't mind zooming in a bit, I'm not sure, a lot of my photos ended up seemingly a bit small. But yeah, so this is a pretty rare Basilicon. These are sort of the transition. The coins I showed earlier are silver trachees, so those are the Scyphate coins that are almost like a cup shape. And during about the turn of the 14th century, around 1300, is when that Scyphate shape translated or transformed into a more flat coin. So you see here, these are not Scyphate, but they are flat. So they resemble more European, Italian style coinages that were coming around the time, like the Venetian grosso. So it was more of an attempt to fit into Western styles of coinage and sort of an abandonment of traditional Byzantine styles of minting. And you can see here on the obverse, we've got Saint Demetrius standing in military garb, holding a spear and a shield. The legends around saying pretty much Holy Saint Demetrius. And then on the reverse, we've got the Emperor Andronicus III, who's being blessed by the Virgin Mary. And the legends there pretty much say the same thing. Emperor Andronicus, and then the Virgin Mary there, the Mother of God, her title. And you can see it's a little chipped, but this is actually a very rare issue. I think there are about 10 on AC Search, but they usually fetch a pretty high price, as in like 4 digits or more. So I was able to get this one for, I think, a little under $200 due to the giant break, which I thought was a fair price. I wouldn't pay what they normally go for in complete shape, so it was a great way to get this example at a cheap cost. And overall, yeah, it's I think a very nice coin. Even though it's broken, you can see it's got that sort of unique Byzantine style going on. The faces are so visible for all 3 individuals on the coin. So yeah, I was overall very happy with this purchase.
And when was this minted?
So this would have been
We know?
between 1328 and 1341. So you've got about a 15-year window there at the beginning half of the 14th century. But the actual specific year is not known.
Gotcha. And what's the weight on this?
So this would be about 1.2 grams. Now mine being broken is a bit lighter. This is kind of known as the reduced basilicon. Around 1300 is when the transition happened to the first flat coins, and those weighed about 2 grams. But when this emperor, Andronicus III, took over, he lowered the weight a bit more.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but they were used to pay for military campaigns, and upon his death, the empire broke into another civil war, and those civil wars are pretty much what ended the empire and made them vassals of the Ottomans, which led to their ultimate conquest in the end. So he sort of represents the high mark of the restored Byzantine Empire. So after the sack of 1204, this emperor's lands and holdings and his power is at the highest any Byzantine emperor had following that sack.
The tears,
Yeah, exactly.
the sadness of well, it's a very cool coin. Obviously, it's very light, even for I think ordinary silver issues of this time. Is that correct? Or
That is
were
correct,
they?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the official weight of being around 2 grams would have been more acceptable in the international scale, but a lot of times the emperors, to cut costs, would obviously devalue and debase coins. That's pretty much what happened here. And I don't know of any
Yeah.
primary documents that talk about people being upset about it, but I'm sure it didn't go over well.
Yeah, no, debasement seldom went down without a fuss.
Yeah, especially with the soldiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. We can go ahead and head on to my next coin. And this one is pretty cool. So it is a unique and unpublished Tornese of Andronicus II Paleologos. And so the coin we just looked at is the larger flat silver coin of the empire. This would have been the small change of that. So the 2 gram basilicon, this would be worth about 1/8 of that. And they come in to be about 0.5 grams. And this type is unpublished and all the reference works. And it's actually the second one of this type I own. Funnily enough, I found 2 in separate group lots across a couple of years, which is pretty funny to own such a rare type like that and have multiple examples. And the obverse has got a winged patriarchal cross. So you can see it's the Byzantine patriarchal cross with wings on either side. And the reverse has got the Emperor Andronicus seated on a throne holding a sword across his lap. And it's pretty noteworthy. I think this is the only type that Andronicus II issued where he's using military iconography in association with the Emperor. So if you want to have him holding a sword or any sort of design like that, this is pretty much the only coin type where you can get it. But yeah, overall, just a very, I was just say overall, just a very nice type and pretty cool to get a second unpublished example of this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I find the design choice on the obverse quite peculiar.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we see winged crosses a lot during this
Yeah,
period?
you do
or?
actually. Sort of around his reign is when it sort of comes into fashion. It sticks around for about 100 years and goes away. But it's decently popular. I think it's just supposed to symbolize the extraordinarily holy nature of the cross. And you notice also it is a patriarchal cross, so it's not a Latin Western cross. This is the Orthodox Eastern cross. So you can see it's actually got 2 bars. If you look at where the wings sort of join the body is the main larger bar.
Yeah.
And there's a bar above that. And you see the slanted bar at the bottom too for the feet of Christ. If you look at Eastern Orthodox iconography, this is the cross they use, whereas you don't see that so much in the West. So it is, in some ways, I think maybe a reaction to the sack of 1204, sort of emphasizing the Orthodox nature of Byzantine religion as opposed to the Latin West.
Very interesting, yeah.
But that's just off the cuff. I don't know if that's the actual symbolization behind it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned it was unpublished. What would
Not
make
for
this
long.
Sorry?
Not for long.
Not for long.
Yeah, I got this
Exactly,
one. The
yeah.
other example submitted at Koinon, so Koinon 6, they'll be published. It's gotten
Nice.
approved and all that. I'm just waiting for that to drop.
Great. Yeah, I can't wait to read that actually.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
But what makes this could you just like explain briefly what makes this a variety amongst Andronicus's other coins?
So number one, you don't see either of these designs on the Tornese fraction. The winged patriarchal cross, you only see that on trachea. So those are scyphate flat bronze coins. This is scyphate round bronze coins. This is a small silver flat coin. So the obverse you don't see on these, and then the reverse is totally unknown for his coins. You see it on previous emperors, but not for his reign, so it's the first recorded type of the emperor seated on a throne holding a sword across his lap for Andronicus II. So it's sort of a combination of an unknown design in silver and a completely unknown design totally for this emperor. So you really got both sides are actually unique in silver, and then the reverse being unique in all metals.
Very interesting. Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool little issue, and actually this is one I got from a group lot as well. I saw it the night before it sold. Couldn't believe it, because I already had one of the type. I was like, am I saying this right? Is there a second example of this super odd coin? So I was actually pretty excited. I just thought it was funny after like 3 or 4 years getting a second example. My previous one is actually broken and damaged, so I couldn't tell who the ruler was, if it was Andronicus or not. I only had part of the right legend, so it was super exciting to get the full legend here and actually understand which emperor issued this.
That makes me so jealous. I mean, I collect like Roman Republican coins, which is the mainstay of a lot of collectors.
Yeah.
So finding rare and desirable types is not really possible in any group lot. They're not going to be group lotted anyway.
You just have to put up with the miserable iconography, the poor styles, the poor preservation. If you can get beyond all that, it's awesome. But I'm telling you, it's a long road to get there.
Yeah. Right, cool.
Yeah.
Next up, this is a denarius of the consuls Lucius Cornelius Lentulus and Gaius Claudius Marcellus. This is an issue that's a little divergent from other Republican issues. It's actually a consular issue, meaning that it wasn't issued by a moneyer or another lower ranked official, but actually issued by the presiding 2 consuls for that year, which makes it a little different, very cool in my opinion. It was issued in the year 49, so this obviously is the year where Caesar crosses the Rubicon, the civil war starts, there's chaos and pandemonium. The Pompeians, hearing of Caesar's approach, they abandon Rome. They first go to southern Italy, trying to raise forces to challenge Caesar. They're unable to, mainly just due to the speed of which Caesar is moving. So eventually they cross into Greece, where this coin was eventually struck. So it was minted in Apollonia in Illyricum. On the reverse, there's a depiction of Zeus. This is thought to be a very famous statue of Zeus Eleutherios, the protector of freedom. I think that the connotations there are pretty obvious. The consuls are promoting themselves as the liberators of Rome. It was a very famous statue that we think was sculpted by the famous artist Myron. He sculpted this statue in commemoration of an event in Syracuse. I'm not really aware of the peculiars on that, if that's really reliable or not, where the current scholarship is leaning towards right now. But that's what I think is happening here on the reverse. So don't quote me on that. I thought I'd go over the legends as per usual. Mm-hmm. It says on the obverse, Lucius Lentulus and then Gaius Marcius. And then obviously the cos for consul. This is pretty much what makes it divergent, really. We don't see a lot of issues having been struck directly by the presiding consuls. The monetary system in Rome was set up in a way where power was divided, and that power specifically was given to the 3 rotating moneyers for that particular year. But obviously, 49, the civil war has just started. Chaos is erupting. The consuls decided to preside over their own coinage here.
It's got wonderful toning as well.
Yeah.
Almost purple, dark blue spots. It's very nice. Bet that looks amazing in hand.
Yeah, this is a coin. I haven't gotten this coin in hand, sadly, yet. It's making its long way from the United States to my country in Sweden. So I'm still waiting. Sadly, it hasn't arrived yet, but I'm very excited for it to come into my hands.
Yeah, I bet.
Moving on. This is a familiar Sistafor. Familiar by now because I've shown I think
A
three of
couple.
them so far. This is a coin of the governor Gaius Fabius Hadrianus. He served as governor of Asia between 57 and 56. Sadly, he's not really attested for in the historical record. We think that he might have served as praetor in 58, but we don't really know. He was likely the son of a Marcus Fabius Hadrianus, who served as a legate to Sulla during the Third Mithridatic War. It's a very rare coin. This is one of only 3 known.
Oh, awesome.
And it's actually the worst of all 3. So I have the honor of owning the worst known coin of this type.
That's my entire collection. Worst known, worst known, worst known.
Exactly.
Hey, as long as you own one, though, it's all that matters.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting issue though. It shows on the reverse here we have a very busy composition. Obviously, Dieware has slightly diluted the legends and the iconography here. But on the right, we can see a cold statue of Hermes with his caduceus in his hand, and he's striking a very very impressive pose. On the left, we can see a Cebu, which was also a very popular symbol used at the mint in Tralles, where this coin was struck. The legends are pretty much worn away. The dies used to strike this particular coin must have been very, very degraded. We can barely make out the name of the governor here. It says Gaius Fabius Marcus Filius, and then below that it says Prucos, meaning proconsul. Between the legends, we can see a Roman eagle, probably supposed to signify military strength here.
And so you mentioned the rarity of this governor, not only in his coinage, also in the historical record. Do you think those are related, that sort of maybe him being a minor player led to a smaller mintage of coinage?
It could be. It's hard to say what the production of coins, what kind of numbers were struck here. This governor only served as in the province for only 1 year. So that alone makes it pretty apparent that he didn't really have the opportunity to strike as many coins as other governors who served perhaps a 3 or even a 5-year term.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, yeah, very nice. And kind of on that comment of, I think the third coin you shared with the wonderful obverse, you can maybe contrast that a bit here, just to see like the normal state of die preservation and how that previous example was so nice.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, I think the obverse here is pretty well preserved in comparison to my other Sistophori, where like the whole design is just faded away. Here you can at least make out the details. You can even see the patterns on the kista, and you can see the snake and a bit on the wreath too. But yeah, obviously. There's significant die wear here seen.
Yeah, it's, very cool, especially with that rarity. Well, cool. Speaking of rarity, here's another cool coin I picked up. This one was not from a group lot, but it was misidentified as a more common type. It is a bronze trachea, so a scyphate coin of Thessalonican Emperor John Komnenos, and the obverse is unclear, so I'm not sure what design would have been there. As with many of these trachis from John, the obverse is a lot of times just obscured. There's no detail, and it's unclear if they're all brokages or if they didn't even use a die for that side. And for the reverse, we've got the Emperor John holding a staff with a cross and a circle, with the Emperor John holding a staff with a cross and circle with Saint Theodore. And this coin type is unknown with Saint Theodore on the reverse with Emperor John. So it is sort of a already understood design, but this time with a brand new saint featuring on it. So it's pretty cool. I hope to get this published at some point, whether that's alone or with some other coins, I'm not sure. But it's an interesting type that sheds more light on the Emperor John Komnenos, and he's well known because during this time, most emperors struck coins per regnal year, so they would usually have an additional type and then one type per year on top of that. So like the Emperor John Vatatzes, I think he ruled maybe 25, 26 years, and so he's got about 26 billion types from Magnesia, and he ruled Thessaloniki for about 12 years and has about 12 types there. But Emperor John, he ruled in Thessaloniki for about 5 years and has, I think, a total now of 43 or 44 known types in bronze. So he's a huge exception to the rule, and it's not clear why. There's some theories that perhaps Venetians were striking different coin designs in his name, and that comes from the fact that lots of his coins have Western-style iconography and Western designs that you usually don't see on Byzantine coins in this period. So overall, it's very interesting. This coin, it's not going to change our understanding of the emperor and his coinage, but it will add one more type hitherto unseen.
And you mentioned this was going to be published. Is this something that's going to be published along with that other?
No, I just meant in the future. I hope to
Oh.
write something up on it and get that put out there. I think it's very interesting, and I've been made aware of one other example. Have we mentioned the site Numis Forum before? I don't know if we have, but numisforum.com, I believe, is the address. You can find me there. But Quant Geek, a user on there, is actually a second example. His is obscured, so you couldn't make out the saint. But with my example now, we're able to piece that together and figure out that he's got an example of this type too. So there are 2 known examples at least of this interesting trachea.
Fascinating. Well, are there any clues as to whom the saint actually, who is being depicted here?
Yeah, so if you look at the round hair, you see almost an afro. There's 2 dots, so you can recognize the hair there and also the beard. Those 2 things put together are a dead giveaway of the saint. So the normal type is of Saint Demetrius, and that would have been with the saint unbearded. So you can tell because of the hair and the beard, you actually don't need a legend. You can just tell from that alone who the saint is.
Gotcha.
Which is, yeah, pretty cool, pretty nice. Pretty lucky that it's one of those saints that had those unique features. Yeah, overall a very cool coin. You don't find unpublished Thessalonican types often, so I was super excited to get this one. It's not the prettiest coin, it's not the nicest coin, but it's mine and unpublished.
Was this a group lot find as well, or was
No,
this
was
something...
on eBay misidentified.
Ah,
Yeah, it was sold as that common type with St. Demetrius, but I was able to pick out the beard and the hair and recognize the rarity for what it was. So yeah, I got pretty lucky there. I knew of at least one other collector bidding, and I ended up winning. So I feel a little bit bad for him, but sorry. All's fair in love and war.
one man's sorrow is another man's joy, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can go ahead and move on to the next coin. And speaking of group lots, this is a find from a group lot. It is, I would maybe say, not my favorite coin of the year, but perhaps the coolest. It is struck by a Thessalonican despot named Michael II. It's extremely rare, and we actually know the precise location and date this was struck. So it was struck in 1248 on the coronation of Michael as despot. And you can see here on the obverse, you've got Saint Michael, sort of worn out, but that's Saint Michael right there. And on the reverse, you've got on the left the despot Michael, and on the right the Emperor John. And if you look, you can actually tell the difference in dress. So the despot Michael has got a round hat, whereas the Emperor John has a flat hat, and the robes they're wearing are actually quite distinct. And my example is a bit broken there at the end on the right end, but if you had a more complete example, you would see that Emperor John is holding a cross-tipped staff, and the despot Michael is actually holding a palm frond. So you can see there's a lot of different distinctions in the way these are depicted, which is kind of an interesting insight into court and ceremonial clothing in late Byzantine culture. and kind of you're able to see two different grades of court hierarchy on one coin, which is not often the case. And then the coinage from Michael is actually extremely rare, and it went unknown for a long time, but they found a couple recently, and there's been some articles in the 70s and 80s that shed light onto him and his reign. And yeah, this is a very rare type. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 on AC search. C and G had listed some incorrectly that are the wrong attribution. They listed coins of Manuel as Michael, but as for the actual authentic examples of this type, there's about 2 or 3 on AC search. So it's very rare, very, very hard to find, and I was pretty shocked when I saw it come up, and I was able to win it.
How did the coronary issues diverge from ordinary issues during, like, in the middle of a reign? How do they differ from each other?
Well, so that's kind of, I mentioned earlier the coin that I'm going to write an article on that is talking about that silver coin of Andronicus II and Michael, and how it's allegedly a coronation issue, but I think that's wrong. I think sometimes any special element on a coin, numismatists say, it's a special mintage, it's a coronation issue, and they wrongly identify it. But in this case, we know that the despot Michael was crowned by John in 1248. We also know coinage was struck to celebrate that, and the legends identify it as Michael and John, so we can be pretty confident of what's going on here. And then just because he's even a lower rank, you can see that the Emperor John's hand is actually touching the head of Michael, and normally in Byzantine coinage you would see that as Mary or Christ or a saint actually crowning or blessing an emperor. So it's sort of that taken down one more rung. Instead of a saintly figure or Christ crowning the emperor, it's now an emperor crowning a lower figure, a despot.
Well, yeah, very interesting. And how rare would you say that this type is?
Yeah, very rare. So maybe two or three publicly sold, and then maybe 2 or 3 in museum collections. So it's extremely rare. They almost never come up, and they usually go for a lot. So to get that in a group lot was super exciting.
God.
Yeah, and they're very desirable just because Despot Michael, he's a very rare figure, hard to get, and sort of the coronation aspect behind this too adds a lot of interest.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell. It also seems that more detail was engraved here. You can see the robes on the emperor there are very finely engraved for the period, at least to my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely took their time on it.
And like on a completely different note, would you say that coins depicting Michael here, seen on the obverse, is that something that's off during this period, or common?
What do you mean?
On the obverse, isn't that Michael winged?
Oh yeah, the Archangel Michael, yeah. Decently common. He's not the most favored figure, but with the Emperor Michael VIII, he was used a lot on his coinage. But this would actually be before that, so it's not rare, but it's not the most common. I mean, I would say most common are going to be Mary and Christ #1, and then probably a military saint #2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, overall a very cool coin, and one that I probably wouldn't have a chance to get ever again, so I was super excited to get that.
Well done. Yes. This coin, this is a denarius of Gnaeus Domitius Calvinus. It's a type that I think is probably very recognizable, especially by those who collect coins of the Roman Republic. Domitius served as consul in 53 and 40. And as I said previously, I think coins issued by people who served as consul before the Civil War, I think that's something that's significant, and I always take an interest in those sort of coins. Domitius was a staunch Caesarian. As I said previously, he served as consul in 53. He sparked a very serious scandal during his election. Basically, he tried colluding with the consuls who were presiding over his election, and this was brought to light, and a huge scandal ensued. But Domitius, probably through Caesar's support and help, was able to start his term as consul late in the year 53. Domitius served in the Civil War, obviously in support of Caesar. He was in command of the Caesarean center at the Battle of Pharsalus. I think many of the coins that I've brought up here, many of them were issued by people who had a command position at the Battle of Pharsalus, and I think that just highlights how momentous and significant this event was. That so many of the most important figures of the late Republic was present at this battle. Obviously, the Caesarian forces prevailed against all odds at the Battle of Pharsalus. In no small part because of Domitius's leadership and the performance of his troops in the center. As a reward for his actions, he was awarded the governorship of Asia, in which he would probably suffer his most crushing defeat of his career at the hands of the Pontic prince Pharnaces. As the civil war progressed, Caesar went to Egypt, and he was stuck in this terrible game of chess with the Egyptian monarchy. He was stuck in Alexandria for a long while. The Senate didn't hear anything from him. His position as a ruler of Rome was severely degraded and weakened. And Rome's enemies took notice of this. Pharnaces, a prince of the neighboring kingdom of Pontus, wanted to reclaim lost land in Roman Asia that Rome had conquered previously. So during this moment of weakness, or perceived weakness rather, Pharnaces invaded Roman Asia. And at the Battle of Nicopolis, Domitius suffered a crushing defeat, which probably shocked the senatorial class in Rome, and then prompted Caesar to take the decisive action against Pharnaces in the east. He later crushed Pharnaces, and the war was short and sweet.
I'm not sure if you mentioned the mints, but the style seems a little unusual, especially on the obverse.
Yes, definitely. So this coin imitates local Iberian designs. So the obverse here is an Iberian depiction of Hercules, and on the reverse we see a group of emblems of the pontificate. I was going to mention this as the civil war ended, as Caesar was assassinated. Everything that we know happened in the late Republic. Domitius was awarded the consulship by Augustus in 40, and after his consulship, he served as governor in Iberia, in Hispania, and this is where he struck this coin in 40 BC, 39 BC, sorry. And we can see here that Domitius chose to employ a design that was very familiar to the Iberian locals, and he also chose to highlight his own political his political gains here on the coin. So you can see here that on the reverse, he's chosen to employ a legend that says Domitius consul iterum imperator, which basically means Domitius consul for the second time imperator. Very prestigious titles, and for a Roman governor to strike coins this way is very unusual, and I think something that highlights at the prestige of this particular governor at the time.
Yeah, well, that's a great explanation and a very cool type. Also, that reverse reminds me of the Caesar elephant coins, the well-known and desired elephant denarii trampling on the dragon or snake. But yeah, that shares the same design, right?
Yeah, it does. probably the emission of Caesar, the one you're speaking of, the elephant denarius, they were so large and so widespread at this time. It's likely that Domitius chose to employ the same symbols just to make it easier for the locals to recognize this as a good coin.
Very cool.
Next up is my final coin in my list. It's a pretty ragged coin, to be honest. It's been cleaned horribly. There's cleaning scratches all over it. It's not in very nice shape at all. But this is probably my most important purchase of the year. So this is a coin of the governor Gaius Claudius Pulcher. He served as governor in Asia between 55 and 53. We only know of one type that he struck during his governorship. And that type is well published. It's quite common, to be honest. But that was the only coin that we knew of from this mint issued by this governor. This coin, however, is completely divergent from anything published before. It displays the legend Gaius Claudius Appius Filius Pulcher Prucos, the full name of the governor, not abbreviated, not limited in any way. This has not been seen on any other coin before, and thus it's quite important for the series. If anyone wants to collect a complete set of these coins, they're gonna have to somehow try to get this coin. It's unique, it's unpublished, as I said, and it's one of the hallmarks of my collection.
Yeah, that's a very nice type. So on the reverse here, is that the Hand of Fatima, or I'm assuming a more ancient symbol or version of that, perhaps? In the right field?
It's actually the headdress of Isis.
Ah,
So this symbol was commonly employed in Asia, in Roman Asia. The convergence of Egyptian and Greek and Roman mythology was very apparent in this region, and because of that, religious symbols employed on these coins are very varied. And on this coin, they chose to employ the headdress of Isis, basically.
neat.
So just to close out, I would just like to mention that this coin was actually condemned as a forgery by a very prominent, very prominent numismatist. I won't go into details here, but I just like to mention it because there have been some discussions about this coin being fake. It's a forgery. It's worthless. Obviously, I bought it. I own it, so I have skin in the game. So my opinion is probably not the most unbiased here. But I think the assessment that has been made on this coin is very flawed. And
what were the arguments?
So one of the arguments was that the legends are divergent from anything seen previously, which is true. But I mean, the absence of a type doesn't mean it's not a very compelling argument. Another thing was that the snakes seen here, that they have beards, and this is somehow proof of a forgery, of a forger not understanding the type. But as we have seen on many other cystophori, beards are very commonly employed on the snakes. So that's not something that's unusual here. Another argument made was that the symbol seen here, the headdress of Isis, was something that only a specific magistrate, so the name seen here, a symbol that only a specific magistrate would have issued. So the argument there being that the symbol and the magistrate combination is incompatible. But I think magistrates used a variety of symbols. They weren't exclusive to each other. There was no one checking, which symbol is combined with which magistrate. They're all used interchangeably, really. And I think I've obviously done my own research before buying this coin. I've tried to fact check really the arguments made, and I think the most compelling reason why this is genuine is that an obverse die match was I found an obverse die match to a previous coin that was issued by the previous governor of this region. And I think that tells me at least that no forger would go through the effort of finding a die match that would be specifically correct to the chronology. They wouldn't go through the effort of making the legends divergent. So I'm fairly certain that this is a real coin. Obviously, it's been cleaned. It doesn't look very nice, but I'm certain it's real.
I would say I have to agree. Yeah, it's a very nice coin and an interesting backstory too.
Yeah, and as I said, it's one of my most important purchases of the year, and not making any promises. I am looking into whether I should make a write-up or a video or something that just highlights the importance of this coin more so than I can do in this specific forum on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I think I can speak for us and our audience to say we would enjoy reading that or watching that. Well,
yeah,
cool.
So moving on.
Guess that means it's my last two. So this is another cool coin. It's also unpublished. I got it from, I think, Biga Numismatics. Whole odyssey behind that. The coin was held as blackmail by the seller, but I eventually got it. Had some issues there, but it's an unpublished coin type with Saint Michael on the obverse. You can see you've got the Emperor's Andronicus II and Michael the Ninth on the reverse. It is worn, damaged, and whatnot, but for it being a unpublished type, and I believe one of two, I'm aware C&G sold a similar example in 2003 in one of their mail auction sales, I want to say. So I'm aware of at least one other type of this Tornese, but it's a very cool issue. Just one that I was excited to get for a relatively cheap price. I think it ended up hammering for about 90 euros, which I think for an unpublished Byzantine silver coin type is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything unpublished for 90 euros is a pretty good deal, yeah.
Yeah, and kind of especially with Byzantine, usually the poor grades don't matter that much. The value is still held.
Sure.
But yeah, it's an interesting type, and that it could shed light on the chronology of these types, which I'll make a comment on. Like I said, I mentioned I'm writing that article on, I keep going back to that, but on that Andronicus II and Michael VIII trachea. So this would have been issued by Andronicus II and his son, and it's actually a piece of evidence that goes semi-far in establishing a new chronology for the late Byzantine mint. So that's a long essay I'm writing right now. We'll see if I ever get it finished, but I think it's going to cause some ripples in the Byzantine numismatic field.
It seems every coin you buy is an earth-shattering.
That's why I bought it.
Unpublished, yeah.
Of course, this is my top list, so there's plenty of ones I got that don't quite make the cut.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good year so far. Lots of interesting types.
And like as a very much an outsider to the whole Byzantine collecting community, I mean, I'm always like very, very interested to hear about these odd group lot finds, unpublished silver coins. They're obviously very worn, so it's always really interesting to and like enigmatic to hear about. And yeah, I'm super impressed that you're able to ID them and that you're able to write so extensively about them.
Yeah, once you go in the weeds, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's like a rabbit hole. Once you get addicted and go down that route, it's hard to get back out. So
Yeah.
now I'm stuck with a bunch of miserable looking small coins that are broken and worn and poorly struck and chipped and cracked and whatnot. But I enjoy it.
This is the way.
Exactly. And speaking of cracked and chipped coins, I think I've got one more coming up here that'll close out my list. Yeah, look at that.
This
Definition
looks
of
like it's about to shamble into 1,000 pieces.
definition of a problem coin, and I was so worried it would come broken, but it it arrived safely and safe and sound in one piece, so I'm thankful for that. I actually got this in a group lot as well. It is a quote unquote coronation issue of John III Vatatzes. So we know it's the first silver trachea he issued. So I kind of mentioned earlier the regnal year that rulers would issue one coin type per year. And so we know they did it for AE, and we're pretty sure they did it for AR as well. Sadly, with AR, not many examples survive, so we don't actually have the evidence to prove that was the case, but it seems like that is. And so they were able to, through the unusual presence of Christ's chalcites here on the reverse, determine the year of issue. And that's unusual because if you look at Christ, the legend says John, despot of the Romans, and then Christ of the Chout Gate, and that's a reference to the icon of Christ that hung at the Chout Gate. And that's famous for the iconoclast controversy, where what kicked off the whole incident were a number of soldiers trying to remove an icon off the Chout Gate, and a crowd of women came up and murdered the soldiers, which sparked the iconoclast controversy. And then for the next 200 years, Byzantium was embroiled in civil wars over should we keep icons or remove them totally. Ultimately, the icon lovers won, and the icon at the Chout Gate was restored to its position. But all of that happened between about 700 and 800 AD. So it's very interesting that almost 400 years later, we still have references to Christ of the Chout Gate, and it's unclear why this was occurring. When this coin was issued, it would have been post the 1204 sack, so Constantinople was in the hand of the Venetians, and Emperor John would have been in Magnesia, in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, so they wouldn't have been near the Chout Gate, and it's just an issue of curiosity as to why this was chosen to be represented. Perhaps that icon was saved during the sack of 1204 and taken in exile, so it could be that that was a claim of legitimacy, that the emperor was saying, we own the icon of Christ of the Chout Gate, therefore it shows that we're still blessed by God, and etc., etc., as justification for their reign. But overall, it's very unusual, and we're not sure at all why they chose that depiction on this coin. But you can see it is wonderfully engraved. Even though there's damage, you can tell the care and artistry given to this piece, that Christ exquisitely engraved with multiple details. You can clearly make out the design of the emperor being blessed by him, being crowned by him, and the obverse, the Virgin Mary seated on a throne. You can even see to the left and right of her lower torso, there's embellishment on the throne design, almost Y forked figures, and that's not something you normally see, so you can tell that this design was given lots of care. It's very intricate and very well carved, and that's not often the case, so it's a exquisitely designed coin, well struck. Sadly, it's damaged, but there's only been one example of this type ever sold, at least on AC Search, so it's extremely rare, pretty much only available in museum collections. So when I saw it come up in a group lot, I knew I had to have it. I think luckily I got it for about 120 euros, and it came with 2 other coins I was able to sell for about that. So pretty much broke even, got it for free, which was nice.
Broke even, got it for free. Yeah, I hate you.
But yeah, it's a very interesting coin, and very large too. It's one of the largest I have. I'm not sure if that comes across in the design, but the dies are actually quite large. I guess it's maybe 3 inches long, maybe 35 millimeters roughly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite large, and it's actually stable too with the crack, even though it seems pretty fragile due to the size. The actual gap of what's not broken, it's pretty thick. It's a large part of the flan, probably about like 10 to 15 millimeters, maybe an inch and a half roughly. And then the flan is decently thick, so although I wouldn't try putting pressure on it, you can easily hold it and handle it without having to worry about this breaking.
Gotcha. Well, how heavy is it?
I want to say it is like 3.27 grams, maybe.
Whoa,
I'm just pulling that
that's
up.
heavy.
Yeah, it is pretty heavy. It's a larger one.
And it's kind of hard to tell in the image here, but is it Cyphate or not?
Yeah, it's Skiffate.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, which is it's like most of the tracheas of that era. Just in being Skiffate, but it's actually pretty large. A lot of the later ones come much smaller. So the very first coin I shared, the one of Michael VIII and Andronicus II, that's about 2.5 grams and maybe 25 millimeters. So this is about a good 10 to 15 millimeters larger and a full gram heavier.
I ask because it's so well struck, being sci-faked. Oftentimes you see them with immense die shifts, where the design becomes almost intelligible. But here the strike is fantastic.
Yeah, and that's one argument used for why they think it was a coronation issue, just due to the nature of you can almost track through the reign of John how the coins get worse, smaller in size, and have less detail. And sort of what I mentioned earlier with the unusual presence of Christ at the Chout Gate on the coin. So you've got a Christ of a specific icon. It's very unusual. That plus the unusual detail size and just general attention given to the series seem to indicate that they were, for whatever reason, given special care. And then just due to the unusual nature of the icon, they sort of think that it came to the beginning of his reign, and they can match with his predecessor certain issues that are related with iconography. So it just seems like everything kind of points to this being a very early issue in his reign.
Interesting, yeah, very kind of exciting with all these quote unquote coronary issues where the style is just really really fantastic for the period.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely, I mean, it's a problem coin, but that's pretty much every coin on my list so far. But when you want to get the unpublished types and the new types, and you're not going to pay for the full price in auction, that's what you've got to do.
Exactly, do what you gotta do. I'm wondering about there's a specific region here, seen on the reverse around, I'd say 10 o'clock. Has that been repaired, do you think? There's it seems
Yeah,
like
honestly,
a
I'm
piece.
not sure, but I considered that, but the fact that it was group lotted would seem unusual. I would think that whoever group lotted it, if they knew what they had, they wouldn't have set it in a group lot, because I think, like I said, I paid about 120 euros for this and two
Yeah.
other coins, which is ridiculously cheap. I think if they knew what they had, they would have sent it off to be single lotted somewhere. But alternatively, who knows? Maybe someone else in the past knew what they had and had it repaired and fixed up, and then just through time it got lost, mis-ID'd, and sent off to a group lot somewhere.
Yeah, gotcha. Well,
Yeah, I'll have to look more in person, honestly. I haven't really investigated that too much. It might be just a scratch in the lighting, because I have handled it and not noticed anything up there.
yeah, because it seems like the if it were a scratch, it seems like the same line can be traced on the obverse, possibly hinting at it being
Yeah,
a
repaired.
repaired
Yeah, I think you might be right, honestly, looking
segment
at it
there.
now. But either way, it's such a problem coin. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think that
yeah.
makes much
It's
of a
not gonna.
difference. It's like, well, it was cracked 65% of the way through and missing a huge chunk in the center, but now that I know part of it's repaired, game over, deal
Worthless.
off.
Yeah, game over.
But yeah, just pretty cool. I think, like, for a lot of these types, when there's only one in private hands, one or two, you really don't have a choice. You get the problem coin or you don't get it at all. So yeah, I got the problem coin.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say overall I had a great year for Byzantine numismatics. Lots of great finds. Yeah, pretty exciting with what I got. Lots of types I wanted and lots of types I didn't even know existed. But as soon as I got them ID'd, I knew I had to have it. And then same to you, lots
Yeah.
of exciting finds, especially that last coin you shared. Very interesting, especially with the controversy behind it. I think it's a cool coin.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I've had a really really great year for coins. Lots of not many unpublished types, a few though, but not as many as you. But all in all, it's been a great coin year, and I would just say, looking from a person looking outside of the Byzantine collecting game, I think you've had a really really great year as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on and recording this. It's been fun as always. If anyone's still watching at this point, I'd ask you to like and subscribe. We have cool content coming out roughly every 2 weeks, 2 weeks to a month. We do about an hour and a half episode talking about ancient coins. And yeah, it's always a fun time. So thanks for joining me as always. I appreciate your time. Hope you have a nice night here, a good rest of your weekend. All right, well, take